Good morning. Good morning. I bring you the greetings of my little congregation of about 20 members, the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Cookeville. It's about an hour and 45 minutes from here. My friend Kathy and I are thrilled to join you and make some new connections in the Tennessee UU community. Lori asked me to come talk to you today because she said your theme this month is community. And my little congregation has an unusual take on community. I went to a workshop at GA this year. It was specifically for small congregations. We definitely qualify. In our introductions, in our breakout groups, we were to say our name, location, pronouns, our congregation, and whether our congregation was lay-led or has a minister. Well, the answer to that is a little complicated, and really the answer is both. You see, we had called a minister in 2012 who was a Methodist chaplain seeking fellowship with the UUA, but ultimately he felt that his calling was toward his other vocation, which was counseling. So in 2018, he told us he was leaving. Meanwhile, I had told him the year before that I felt called to ministry. I have an unusual background in that I did not go to college because I was a Jehovah's Witness, and that denomination strongly discourages college. In fact, I found it interesting when I saw a Pew Research report, and one of the lowest college graduation rates of any faith is Jehovah's Witnesses. They have 12% college graduates in their denomination. But the faith I have grown into, Unitarian Universalism, is the second highest with 67% college graduates after Hinduism. So in 2016, I told my therapist that not going to college was the biggest regret of my life. And she said, well, sounds like you need to go to college. And I said, yeah, but it's expensive, and I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. This was at age 45. She suggested that I just take a class or two, maybe it would help me figure it out. But to be honest, I just put it out of my mind. I thought, it's too big a dream. 2 weeks later, the state of Tennessee announced their Reconnect program, which pays for 2 years of college for anyone over the age of 25 who doesn't have an associate's degree or higher. Well, I thought, I am out of excuses. Once I finished my associates, I got a fellowship at MTSU, and I should graduate next year with degrees in religious studies and sociology. Thank you. After that, maybe seminary, we'll see. My therapist was right. In the course of going to college, I did find my calling. And as I had told Reverend Mark, I was right, it's ministry. But when Mark in 2018 told the board he was leaving, I reiterated that I do feel called to ministry, but at that point I was only 2 years into my associate's degree, and I was only going part-time, so I was about halfway through, and then COVID messed that all up. And I said, there's like a lot of years between me and a Master of Divinity. And he said, there might be another way. So he put me in touch with the UU Central East Region's Commissioned Lay Ministry program, so I wrote them and asked to be accepted. I didn't realize at the time that the program was only for the Central East region. And the CLM Council was completely confused as to what to do with me for two reasons. One, I was in the wrong region, and one, I was looking to take the program to help me serve as my congregation's called minister. It took them 6 months to even get back to me. And when they interviewed me for the program, the council member, Jeff, who's now a dear friend, said to me, how did this happen? Well, it happened because, as you probably know, UU congregations have something called congregational polity, which means that each congregation has the power to call whomever they want, and as well as power over their budget and assets and building, etc. And this is different from the way a lot of other denominations run things. And I would say that it's an aspect of our faith that's precious to us as UUs, this local source of authority, this ability to make our own decisions. Well, the CLM Council accepted me as a pilot project in the southern region. Only a few of us serve our congregations as settled ministers, and most of the others sort of grew into it. It wasn't their intention from the beginning. So if you have any questions about the program, I'd be happy to answer them. Most CLMs serve their congregation as sort of an assistant to the minister, somebody that is called to serve. And we have this curriculum that spans, it's changed since I did it, but it spans 12 different areas of expertise, and it's a lovely program. So if you're interested in expanding your faith, then talk to me, and we'll see about getting you in touch with the council. Anyway, I think my congregation is in a situation that a lot of very small congregations are in that we just don't have the budget to call even a half-time fellowship minister, at least at the going rate, giving seminary debt, maybe expenses of moving and all that. And since I had already given several sermons while our previous minister was serving half-time, they enthusiastically supported the idea of me serving as their minister. I finished the curriculum in 2022. At last year's General Assembly, I and two of my CLM cohort did a workshop on shared ministry, because CLMs are in a particular place of understanding what shared ministry looks like. Most of us are volunteers, and we serve in a way that isn't like, it's hard for us to define, well, what is a commissioned lay minister? We serve in different ways. Some of us are focused on pastoral care. Some of us are focused on worship. Some of them do music and RE, etc. So shared ministry is what I'd like to talk to you about today. Because in our congregation that's both lay-led and minister-led, we have a unique perspective on shared ministry. Now, when I talk to my congregation about shared ministry, I often bring our mission statement into it. And this is how our mission statement goes. We gather as an inclusive community to inspire spiritual growth, compassionate living, and joyful service. We recite this together every week at our service. So when I went to write this sermon, I dropped by your website to see what your mission, vision, and covenant look like. And I love that, like us, not only do you make it part of your service, but you sing it together. I'm sure that makes it so much easier to remember. But this morning I want to draw attention in particular to that last line of your covenant. With purpose and passion, we care for one another and grow together. That is such a beautiful sentiment. So the question I have for each of you today is, what is your purpose and passion with which you care for one another and grow? Or put another way, what is your calling? Or what is your ministry? This past week, I had the privilege of participating in a panel discussion following a screening of a documentary that's called Bad Faith: Christian Nationalism's Unholy War on Democracy, which, by the way, I recommend. The discussion that we had was absolutely lovely. Besides me, it included the president of our local NAACP, a representative from Christians United for Separation of Church and State, a Methodist minister, and my dear friend Troy Smith, who is an author and professor of history at Tennessee Tech University. The documentary explains a dominionist fundamentalist theology that's called the Seven Mountains Mandate. It holds that there are 7 aspects of society. They include the family, religion, education, media, entertainment, business, and government. Now, the mandate is that conservative Christian nationalists should take over by, pleasant means, or by hostile takeover, or even by destruction and destabilization, if necessary, each of these 7 mountains, and then rebuild them in a society encompassing theocracy. When they have done this, it will bring about Armageddon, rapture, kingdom of God. Disturbing, needless to say. Well, Troy, in the typical long-winded fashion when he gets going on anything about history, said that naturally when he heard this about these 7 mountains, he thought of Gettysburg and the Battle of Gettysburg. As of course he said, I'm sure you did. Then he told the story of Colonel Joshua Chamberlain, who suddenly found himself in command of his regiment after his commanding officer was mortally wounded and ordered him to hold the little mountain that's called Little Round Top at all costs. Chamberlain had 385 men, and they were taking heavy fire, and before long they were out of ammunition. But because Chamberlain had studied ancient Greek and Roman texts, he knew something about phalanx fighting, which is where you form a line with, shields and spears and charge into the enemy. So he had his men form a phalanx with their bayonets and charge down the hill. They captured and defeated the Alabama forces at the base of the hill, and that, Troy says, is a significant part of the reason that the Union won the Battle of Gettysburg, and the Battle of Gettysburg is ultimately a lot of the reason that the Union won the war. Some would say, anyway. But his point was this: if there are indeed 7 mountains of human society, I'll name them again: family, religion, education, media, entertainment, business, and government, then he said those of us who are liberal-minded have to think about how we're going to hold those mountains. Troy's question was, what's your mountain? And what are you doing to defend it? Which really is another way of thinking about my earlier question about what your calling is. Our religious heritage as Unitarian Universalists is Protestant. Starting with Martin Luther, many Protestant denominations articulated what is called in theology a priesthood of all believers. You've probably heard that before. And it was a reaction to Catholic teachings where they were selling indulgences to help people get out of purgatory and into heaven, and needing to pay for the services of a priest to do so. The Protestant Reformation said, no, we do not need priests to intercede for us with God. The only intercessor we need is Jesus Christ. We can have a direct line to God, and our relationship with the divine is between us and him. Now, Unitarians took this a step further. Not only do we not need another human to help us in our relationship with the transcendent, as we would say now, but we are stewards of our own belief and spiritual path. We get to decide what we believe, and we get to be responsible for our own spiritual growth. But if we put this in a modern context, when our faith is so concerned, deeply focused on spiritual justice and mutual care, then this priesthood of all believers takes on still another meaning. Let's change it a little bit. Let's call it a ministry of all believers. Yes, we as a denomination have professional paid clergy, and Lori's a friend of mine since a couple of years ago, and I can attest that you have chosen a very fine minister. In our little congregation in Cookeville, the thing that intimidated me most in thinking about becoming a minister, despite not having been to seminary, is that though I'm a very good listener, I'm not really qualified to offer pastoral care in the professional sense, and that means that at UUCC, all of us have to care for one another. But it doesn't mean that only in my little congregation. Just because you have a paid minister doesn't mean you leave the ministering to her. If we have a ministry of all believers, then every one of us has a ministry to which we are called, both in the congregation and in the community. I noticed on your board it says that leaders need a team. Absolutely. In the congregation, it might be lighting the chalice, reading to the kids, serving on the board, helping cleaning your beautiful grounds, participating in or leading a small group, or just being a friend to a fellow congregant, taking care of the young or the old, or someone who needs care of any kind, or just being a quiet presence in times of sorrow. In the community, there might be a protest or participating in a panel discussion, or helping a neighbor, or volunteering at a local food bank, which you have, so it doesn't even have to be outside the community. You guys are the community in a lot of respects. A calling might be a today thing, or it might be a lifetime thing. The question is, will you answer the call that you hear in your heart? One thing I know is it is service. Your mountain, whether you think of it in a military way, the way Troy does, or perhaps in a gentler way, tending the soil and caring for those around you, is that purpose and passion to which you have covenanted with one another. Another way we might frame this philosophy is mutual aid. An eye for an eye, Gandhi said, makes the whole world blind. But when we care for one another, that care for the needs of one another, we all prosper. That is what it means to minister. It means to serve. Jesus humbled himself, got on the ground, and washed the feet of his disciples, which was at the time the act of a servant. Whether we're believers in him or not, that is an example we can follow and a story with a moral worth imitating. I have one more story to share with you that I think probably many of you are already familiar with, but I'm going to look at it from a little bit different aspect. It's not well known in our association either, but I think you might know. It's about Lon Ray Call, who served as the American Unitarian Association's minister at large. He served the AUA starting in 1941 and is the father of the AUA's fellowship movement. This was a new focus. Previously, what would happen is a minister would move to a new territory and work to start a new congregation. But Lon Ray Call started this fellowship movement, encouraging lay-led fellowships that had no minister. The AUA provided guidance for these groups after organizing the fellowship office in 1948. And during the fellowship movement of the 1950s and 60s, hundreds of these lay-led groups were formed. In fact, of the congregations founded during the fellowship period from 1948 to 1967, 323 survive today, which is nearly a third of the total UU congregations in the United States. This is the greatest period of congregational growth in our denominational histories. And I discovered with a little research, your congregation is one of the early ones. Reverend Call helped form Tennessee Valley and Oak Ridge at that time, and though the two groups shared a minister, many of the congregations formed at that time did not have that luxury. So lay leadership and lay ministry are important parts of our tradition, partly made possible because of this ministry of all believers. Having a minister is a blessing, but it does not change the fact that we each serve each other, and we serve ourselves as our own minister in that we chart the course of our own spiritual growth. But we also minister to one another to assist each other in spiritual growth, as well as with emotional and spiritual needs and physical needs. The fellowship movement gave us that sense of shared ministry between lay people and religious professionals in a democratic sense of leadership that challenges authoritarian models. And in our denomination, sometimes we go a little bit even to the extreme in challenging those authoritarian models. But it laid the foundation for the principles that we've been living by for the last 60 years, especially our democratic process. So, let us live into this rich heritage, spend some time thinking about the thing that lights you up. As Howard Thurman says, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and then go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Those places, the places that make you feel most alive, are your best clue to answer that question if you haven't already. What is spirit, our collective humanity, and your purpose and passion calling you to? Then go do that thing and come alive and kindle the fires of purpose and passion in those around you as well. May it be so, and may we make it so.